Good morning, everybody. It's time for our daily lectionary reading for Monday, June 28th. Wow, it is almost July already. Man, this year's flying. What do we have today? We're starting a new psalm, Psalm 18. We're going to do 1 to 6 and 43 to 50, and we'll be in this for a few days. This psalm is 50 verses long, so the lectionary is looking at the beginning and the end of it. And then we have 1 Samuel 23, 14 to 18, the continuing saga of David. And then 2 Corinthians 8, 16 to 24. So, without further ado, now Psalm 18 says it's a royal thanksgiving for victory. And the introductory text says, a psalm of David, the servant of the Lord, who addressed the words of this song to the Lord on the day when the Lord delivered him from the hands of all his enemies and from the hand of Saul. So this is celebrating that he was no longer fearing for his life and on the run. All right. So I love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer, my God, my rock in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. I call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised, so I shall be saved from my enemies. The cords of death encompassed me, the torrents of perdition assailed me, the cords of Sheol entangled me, the snares of death confronted me. And in my distress I called upon the Lord, to my God I cried for help. From his temple he heard my voice, and my cry to him reached his ears. You delivered me from strife with the peoples. You made me head of the nations. People whom I had not known served me. As soon as they heard of me, they obeyed me. Foreigners came cringing to me. Foreigners lost heart and came trembling out of their strongholds. The Lord lives. Blessed be my rock, and exalted be the God of my salvation, the God who gave me vengeance and subdued peoples under me, who delivered me from my enemies. Indeed, you exalted me above my enemies. You delivered me from the violent. For this I will extol you, O Lord, among the nations, and sing praises to your name. Great triumphs he gives to his king, and shows steadfast love to his anointed, to David and his descendants forever. And we have a very brief passage in Samuel today. David remained in the strongholds in the wilderness, in the hill country of the wilderness of Ziph. Saul sought him every day, but the Lord did not give him into his hand. And David was in the wilderness of Ziph at Horesh when he learned that Saul had come out to seek his life. Saul's son Jonathan set out and came to David at Horesh. And there he strengthened his hand through the Lord. And he said to him, do not be afraid, for the hand of my father Saul shall not find you. You shall be king over Israel, and I shall be second to you. My father Saul also knows that this is so. And then the two of them made a covenant before the Lord. And David remained at Horesh, and Jonathan went home. This is not the first mention of a covenant between David and Jonathan, that their closeness, the friendship, the intimacy that they shared together, that commitment. Covenant is a nice churchy word these days, but it's a word that's used often in biblical times. In that time and place, it signified a commitment, an obligation, a mutual obligation, a mutual commitment. We have the Yahweh's covenant with his people and Christ in the new covenant. So we have these understandings, these agreements, it's almost like a contract in a lot of ways. And David and Jonathan had this, where they were committed to each other, to each other's well-being. And here's Jonathan, who is in line for the throne, but committing to David being on the throne at his own expense. That he's basically giving up his right to the throne of Israel. That he will be second to David, which is that's a pretty big commitment. All right, let's go to the 2 Corinthians. But thanks be to God who put in the heart of Titus the same eagerness for you that I myself have. For he not only accepted our appeal, but since he is more eager than ever, he is going to you of his own accord. With him we are sending the brother who is famous among all the churches for his proclaiming the good news. And not only that, but he's also been appointed by the churches to travel with us while we are administering this generous undertaking for the glory of the Lord himself and to show our goodwill. We intend that no one should blame us about this generous gift that we are administering, for we intend to do what is right, not only in the Lord's sight, but also in the sight of others. And with them we are sending our brother, whom we've often tested and found eager in many matters, but who is now more eager than ever because of his great confidence in you. And as for Titus, he is my partner and co-worker in your service. As for our brothers, they are messengers of the churches, the glory of Christ. Therefore, openly before the churches, show them the proof of your love and of our reason for boasting about you. Now, this passage, it talks about, where is it here? This generous undertaking. This is where Paul is raising a collection for the church in Jerusalem, and which was in poverty. Those were in poverty and struggling. So this is basically a bit that is fundraising, which is always a very difficult subject to talk about. But he's sending Titus, who is apparently known to the Corinthian church. And there's some fondness there between Titus and the church in Corinth. It's really interesting that he does not name the other two, because Paul typically names those who he's sending with his letter. No one really knows why he's not naming these other two messengers. There's theories, and like a lot of biblical scholarship, and there's a lot of hypotheses and guesswork, and one of the more interesting ones is that Paul did not appoint those two. So by not mentioning their names, he's elevating Titus, that Titus is in charge, right? He sent Titus. Titus is his co-worker. And for Paul, that is a great compliment. There's really no higher compliment than the co-worker in Christ. And he refers to Titus as his partner and co-worker in your service. So that theory, which I said that this one I find pretty interesting, is that by not mentioning them by name, it's almost a slight to them, sort of damning by faint praise. They don't rate having their name mentioned, but Titus does twice in this passage, which clearly puts him in the elevated position. Some think that the person, especially that first one, it says is famous among all the churches for his proclaiming the good news, that they would know this person, or at least know of them. Knowing what we know about Paul, though, the idea of this subtle elevating of Timothy and diminishing the other two because they weren't appointed by him, because he was appointed by the churches to travel with us. So they were kind of, are they sent to safeguard and make sure that this is all on the up and up? So it doesn't really surprise me that Paul would kind of be subtle in this, but it's a bit of a dig. Yeah, he's famous, but they sent him along to make sure that We're administering this for the glory of the Lord. Just, it's fascinating stuff, really, or at least for nerds like me. So that's all for our readings for today. I will see you mañana. Have a beautiful day.